Dear learners, welcome back to SWAYAM NPTEL course on Library Automation and Networking. This is week 1, module number 1, Library Automation, lecture number 5, and the title of this particular lecture is Library Automation, Barriers, Present Scenario, Recent Developments and Future Orientation. Dear learners, we have learned much about library automation as its basics, definitions, and the history and also the developments. In this particular session, we will be discussing more about what are the challenges or barriers which hinder the automation process, or why people are not adopting automation in many of the libraries, and what is the present scenario of library automation in India, and also we will be discussing about different developments like recent development as well as future orientations in library automation process. Dear learners, as we know that library automation is application of computers and networking in libraries to perform activities, services and other additional services to provide better services to the users, so that users will be able to access the resources and get the services from the libraries with ease or efficient and effective manner. So advent of computers and information and communication technologies as well as digital technologies have been completely changed the scenario of library image, that we have been modernized or we have been computerized the library activities and services. When you look at the scenario of India, we can see that many of the libraries, especially small libraries like school libraries, college libraries and sometimes special libraries, either they claim that they have automated, but in real sense sometimes we can see that it is not fully automated or it is not automated in the real sense. Even if a particular library is holding a particular circulation module, sometimes they claim that we have done the automation. So as we have seen that there are many areas, normally we call it as housekeeping operations, where we can implement automation. So in the real sense there are scenarios that though they claim that automation has been done, but in real sense this has not been done properly. So there will be many issues, barriers or challenges why people are not doing automation or adopting automation softwares. Even if they embrace such kind of a library automation system, why sometimes they have not fully automated, why they are not able to perform all the activities how the other libraries are doing. So we will be discussing all this scenario in Indian situation, where we will also be discussing about major advantages of performing library automation also. We will be also discussing about the recent development as well as the future orientation of library automation also. So as we know that when you plan for a library automation, there are many categories, like we have to decide the automation software first, and what is the hardware requirements and the infrastructural requirements, networking systems as well as staff or manpower, and also we need to think more about funding systems too. So we need to find out all these facilities, or we need to plan well in advance to perform a housekeeping operations automation system. And as we know that many of the library professionals, sometimes they have not been that much aware about the availability of different mechanisms like commercial software, open source software and their advantages, disadvantages, all these things. So as a person who learned library and information science as a subject, they should be able to know the difference between the automation software, availability of automation software, how do we perform the automation in a particular library. So you should always have a skill and also the interest, and apart from that you should also get kind of support from the management. So all together makes an automation in the real scenario. Dear learners, as we have seen that many of the libraries have not done their automation process in the real sense. So what could be the reason for this particular scenario, that why many of the libraries are not adopting? As we have seen that library automation has its own advantages, and it enormously reduces the clerical or administrative work which are happening in a particular library, so that you as a librarian will be able to save a lot of time. That saving time can be used for some other constructive services or activities in a particular library. So why this particular scenario happened, why many of the people have not adopted integrated library system or library automation. So we will see one by one. In that way, what are the barriers which are affecting library automation system, we will be seeing. The first one is initial setup cost. So as we have seen that in order to plan a particular library automation process, we need to think about software, hardware, infrastructure, manpower, as well as the need from the user side also. The first one is initial setup cost. So as we have seen that to set up a library automation or to plan a library automation, the foremost thing we require is availability of fund or availability of the infrastructure. So all these areas, there are some cost involved. So when we talk about automation software, we know that there are softwares like commercial software where we need to purchase that software. For that we have to pay a huge amount, as well as once you purchase this installation and all these activities like customization, localization, addition of modules, everything requires some kind of a cost. And once it is implemented and you try to use, then you have to provide some kind of a user training. That means the person who is using that, as well as the staff who is performing the duties using that particular software. So training for users as well as staff, cost of hardware and software. Even if you purchase a software, to install that software we need supporting hardwares. So all this scenario, there is a financial involvement, there is a cost involvement. So initially when you need to set up a library automation in your library, or if you wanted to perform your library automation, definitely you need to have some kind of a setup in the funding system. So that could be the first barrier in which many of the libraries are not adopting the automation process because of the initial setup cost. That way we can conclude that one of the reasons of barriers of library automation is, one is low budget or the non-availability of budget. Otherwise, there will be unaffordable cost of software and hardware. Everything for buying we need to pay, for installing we need to pay, or for doing some kind of a customization we need to pay. We have to train the users as well as the staff, and of course there is an infrastructure facility. For making that facility also we need to have some kind of an initial cost. So that could be the first reason. And the second point is technical complexity. So when you are performing a particular library automation in your library, we know that there are a lot of practice or there are a lot of skills which are required, because each and every stage we require some kind of a skill to perform such kind of activities. So automation is always a complex process because it involves many activities like installation, customization, networking, resource sharing, access to circulation systems. All these formalities or complexities are there. So we need to have some kind of a thorough knowledge about the working conditions or the technicalities of a particular software, hardware, networking system, and as well as to train users and staff. So that could also be another reasons why this adoption rate is less in India, and it is termed as barriers to library automation. And sometimes we will see that we need technical experts. If you are as a person not able to perform that installation and customization, sometimes we need to hire an external expert. So because of such kind of complexity, many times people won't accept or people won't adopt library automation softwares because they require some kind of a hiring of experts from the outside. That is also an issue for adopting library automation softwares. The next one is job displacement. Many of the staff, they think that if the computer is installed or the automation performed by a machine, then there is a chance of losing their job. Or sometimes they feel that even if they do such kind of activities, they won't get much recognition because it looks like the system has done all this job. So such kind of a fear of job displacement, or sometimes they fear that if they are working in some other area like circulation counter, they are comfortable for a long time, they are doing the same process and activities. If there is a relocation from their particular place of convenience to the other place where they will be knowing the new work which has been assigned to them. So these are all sometimes the problem with, or we can say that, barriers to library automation. And the other one is resistant to change. As we know that the technology is developing, new technologies and techniques, tools which are available to perform many of the activities. So unless until a library staff update himself or herself, they will not be able to cope up with the technological changes. So what has happened normally in this particular library automation scenario, many of the staff, they don't have that much skill, or they are not even updating their knowledge in that way, so that they are having the fear of resisting that particular kind of a changes. That means when you are changing from traditional to modern, they have a fear factor in their mind. How do they cope up with such kind of a advanced technologies or technological changes? So that could also be another reason for making library automation as a challenges in the Indian scenario. And the next one is digital divide. As we know that though technology is increasing and the tools, all such kind of a networking system we developing, but only a few section of the geographical area may be getting the benefit of such kind of a technology. So there is a huge digital divide among the libraries where they don't have access to resources and they don't have access to such kind of electronic materials and infrastructure, software or hardware, and they are not even knowing about the technologies also. So such kind of a digital divide also can make a barrier to library automation. And another reason for not having such kind of a library automation in the libraries are losing of personal interaction. When we depend on the machines or computers or the technologies, the human interaction or the interaction between the library staff and library user, definitely it comes down. So the interaction in which we are getting the feedback, or in the way in which we know the pulse of the user, will be losing when you go for a computerization. As we are doing lot of work in the library, many people come even in a circulation counter. If you go for an advanced technologies like RFID or barcoding system, where the user self can do the transaction process, they won't have any kind of an interaction between the library staff and even the users. So in such cases, the physical ambience will be losing and the interaction between the staff and users will be losing. So people have such kind of a fear that if you go for modernization or complete automation of a library, there is a reduction in the number of footfalls, as well as there will not be a healthy interaction between the users as well as the staff in a particular library. That also could be a reason for barriers to library automation. And another one is data privacy and security concerns. As we know that many of the libraries, when you go for automation, we do automation of circulation also. For circulation, we should have the details of books as well as users. So when you provide users details, as we are collecting the personal details of users, so users sometimes feel that it is a mandatory requirement that they have to give all the details to the library. So when automation goes in that way, you are feeding all the details of a particular person as their personal information in your system. If there is a failure in security or if something happens like system crashes or there is no backup was available, then there is an entire crash of the data which are available related to users as well as the library collection. Apart from that, there can be security concern that you are providing such information in your server, so there can be a hacking or there can be leakage of such kind of a confidential information like personal information. That could also be one of the reasons why people are not adopting automation systems in their libraries. The next one is training and support. In many cases, there are both the sides of this training and support. Suppose you are going for a commercial software. As a librarian, you are purchasing that commercial software. For that, if you are not well equipped with that particular software, otherwise also the major control over this particular software will be along with the supplier or vendor or the developer. So you always need to depend them. So sometimes you won't get proper support from them, so all your work will be pending. So you always need to have some kind of a dependency on others. So some people are fear of that. If you depend on them, if something happens in the other way, so you won't get a support, so you will not be able to deliver a proper services to the users. And apart from that, we need to get some kind of a training as a library staff, as well as library should provide maximum training to the users as well as staff. So that also having some kind of a complexity in providing such kind of an information. So people normally think that, okay, let's not go for this automation software. If you do that, we have to provide automation software's training program for staff as well as users. So in order to avoid that, people don't adopt automation software. So that also could be a reason for barriers to library automation. The other point is dependence on vendors. As we have seen the earlier one, that we have to depend on the vendors sometimes, even for customization, and sometimes suppose you wanted to add a new module in your particular library software. So as you don't know how to add this particular module because it requires a lot of customization, lot of programming knowledge, and as well as you need to have some kind of a control over the software, because the source code in which this particular program is written is along with the vendors. So you always need to depend the vendors. So such kind of a vendor dependency also causes some kind of a barriers to adopting library automation softwares. So dear learners, I hope that you got all the points which are related to barriers in adopting library automation system. Now let us look into the present scenario of library automation, especially in the Indian scenario. There is an increased emphasis on digital libraries. When we talk about automation, so it is not only the housekeeping operations you are automating, and you can perform the automation in such a way that you can develop a digital library, you can develop institutional repositories, you can develop online portals, or you can also develop OPAC. So as we can see that in presently there are many libraries, they are creating digital libraries. So most of the libraries you can see that they have their own collection, either they scan it or they will be having some kind of a bound digital material, or they may download from wherever it is available, and they are keeping a digital libraries in an organized form of information for making a search interface to the users as well as providing access to the users. So there is a trend we can see in the present scenario. Not only people are going for library automation in the housekeeping activities, and apart from that they are developing, they are creating, or they are making such kind of digital libraries for the benefit of library users. And also if they create such kind of a digital libraries, they are also managing their electronic collections like e-books, e-journals, and the databases. So either they provide a direct link to that, or else they will be downloading the articles and keeping in the digital libraries so that search will be easy for the users. And the other one is predictive analytics for collection development. So technologies like predictive analytics, say for example when we talk about artificial intelligence, so the mechanism of predictive analytics, that means you will be knowing about the trends or the pulses of the users, how they are behaving and what kind of requirement they have, and how do we improve the services of the library. So all this kind of data will be available in a huge complex mass. So when you analyze with such kind of data in a particular manner, and you can predict that if this is the trend now and this could be the future trends. So making such kind of a prediction using predictive analytics, and you will be able to make a good decision. So in the present scenario, many of the libraries are doing based on the predictive analytics, and they are making decisions based on that. Online catalog and discovery tools. As we know that many of the libraries earlier they used to have card catalogs, and then when they changed to OPAC, they used to have public access online, they used to have online public access catalog within their library, and then they have extended the version like Web OPAC, where people can access their catalog from anywhere in the world without any geographical barriers. And also they used to provide 24/7 access to all the resources, and getting the bibliographical details were very easy. And now people are using some kind of a discovery tools also, where you are making such kind of a search in a federated search manner. Suppose you have many resources, you are buying this, that, and e-books, electronic journals, databases, etc. You need to have a single platform or single window access, where you will be able to provide all the resources, search in a particular interface, where instead of going individually to different databases or different e-collection, people can search or users can search in a single window, or we can call it as graphical user interface, where people will be able to make all such kind of a combination for searches and make their searches in a single window. And apart from that, the access like remote access, and without physically coming to the library or physically coming to the campus where the IP address is registered for campus access, people are now having access to remote. That means even if you are traveling or if you are at home or geographically away from this library location, now we have all the facilities to get the access to library materials, how equally you are accessing the same resources from the library. That we call it as remote access. So that also part of present scenario where we can see in the library automation scenario. The other one is open access initiative. So library is also greatly supporting open access initiative, as we know that open access means you are providing access open. That means there is no restriction in which people can access the resources. Next one is mobile applications. As we know that now everyone is using mobile technologies. So using these particular technologies, people can access any kind of resources from anywhere in the world. So mobile technologies are highly being used in the library. Say for example, suppose you are having an overdue in the library circulation system because you have taken a book and which is not returned on time, then there is a fine for that. That fine even can paid online, or if you go to library, we can pay through QR code or any of such mechanism where mobile application is largely being used. And apart from that, sometimes people will use mobile technologies like the social networking sites, etc., for sharing the resources, for getting instant messages, even for knowing the status of library circulation or transaction, etc. So mobile technology also one of the major area in which libraries are largely adopting in many of the Indian library systems. And the other one is user-centered design. So now the technologies, as we know that when we talk about traditional libraries, we have catalog. That catalog used to be searched by any of the users, those who come to the libraries. But now the scenario has been completely changed. Even a person with physical disabilities, or if a person is not able to physically come to the library, or even if they wanted to access the library while traveling, or what kind of interface they are expecting. So based on their requirement, so it is more into user centric. That means you are concentrating more on users' comfortability or convenience in accessing the resources. It may be either electronic resources, or maybe digital libraries or institutional repositories, or even the library catalog, etc. This will be largely adopted in libraries also. And another one is user self-service. As we have seen that if you go for barcoding system, RFID system, etc., many of the services are like user self-services, because they no need to depend on library staff, they no need to sometimes come to the library as physically. So they have all the options. Say for example, they wanted to make purchase order, they can make it online, and if they suggest some kind of e-resources, that can be done online, and without coming to the library they can use RFID systems where they can drop their books without waiting for its formal renewal or check-in out or check-in, etc. So all such facilities are available where people are having too much convenience and comfortability, where without depending the library staff, now they are able to find out their resources and they are able to do their transactions as their own. Collaborative partnership also one of the areas in which we can see in present library systems, like the library automation or the resource sharing or kind of interlibrary loan, or we can say that library consortia. So these are all the technologies like library cooperation and networking. This is highly made an impact in the library and library users, because they can have too much collaboration among the scholars or among their group, as well as collaboration with other countries. So libraries always support and enable such kind of collaboration through automation process. Again, data privacy and security, as we have seen that it is one of the barriers, but still people are learning much about data security and privacy, so that as per the rules and regulations, guidelines, people are, or libraries are much more aware about the data protection. So in that way, the privacy is not a matter of concern these days. Many of the libraries we can see in that way also. In RFID management system, radio frequency identification management system, you can see that people are coming as their own and they are doing their own circulation process, and the transaction will be done by self. So some of the recent developments we will be discussing now. As we know that we have seen all the recent developments like artificial intelligence, natural language processing, semantic, data mining, machine learning, deep learning, all these technologies, though it is part of computer science and data science, it all have its own implication in library and information science also. So as we have seen that AI or artificial intelligence powered chatbots, where we can have a real interaction between a particular human being and a machine. That means you don't need to depend a particular library staff in the library, whereas you will be having a mechanism that once you make a query, the real time it will be able to make some kind of an answers for your queries. So when you look at it in that way, there are chatbots, etc. will be helpful in making some kind of a personal assistant online. And also voice activated interfaces, where a particular user will be able to interact with the machine as in their own languages. That we call it as natural language processing, where it is an amalgamation of linguistics, artificial intelligence, machine learning and deep learning, etc. So where you know one language, that means as your own language you will be knowing only one language. So with that language you will be able to express your concern or queries, and with that the system will generate a particular answer for your query, and that will be creating an answer for you in the way in which you require in the same language. So such kind of a audio recognition or language recognition technology has also been recently used in libraries. Of course, collaborative digital scholarship platforms also available. In that way, that is also highly beneficial for the libraries as well as the users, because such kind of technologies help the researchers or learners to make their projects online or make their project outcomes or feedback, etc. in the online format and publishing their output in the digital format. So it's a kind of a process in which can be done very easily, and the propagation or the publicity of that particular material will be very faster when we compare to the print material. Let us see some of the future orientation of library automation also. As we have seen that we are still witnessing artificial intelligence implication, still it is growing. So many of the applications which are gradually adopted by libraries, and now also we can see maybe in the future course also libraries will be highly adopting artificial intelligence technologies like deep learning, machine learning, artificial intelligence, semantic web, natural language processing, etc., etc. And also like virtual reality, augmented reality. Say for example, without physically visiting the library, you will be able to see virtually each and every corner of your particular library, its structure, collection, and what are the services and what are the activities which are happening in a virtual environment. So such kind of virtual or augmented reality or mixed reality, this is also will be possible in the case of library and information centers. Robotics and automation is another area in which we can see in the recent times, as well as we will be able to in the future scenario, that libraries will be highly adopting robotics technology for performing all the library automation activities such as shelving, inventory control, circulation, basic patterns assistance, etc., etc. Another one is emphasis on sustainability. So future library automation may be concentrating more on its sustainability. So as we know that many of the softwares, even in Indian scenario also we can see that many of the libraries with enthusiasm they will start automating the libraries, and in between they may stop, and in such cases the sustainability of such kind of activities need to be think of. So definitely we will be having in the future, we will be thinking about the sustainability also, so that automation will be going for a long way. So, and sometimes for that we say for example green libraries, so that will have a sustainability for a longer time. So instead of having other mechanisms how we perform in the conventional libraries, energy efficient systems, electricity efficient systems, staff efficient systems, etc. can be adopted in the future also. Dear learners, with this let me conclude this particular session. we have seen that how the library automation was there in the developments and how the recent times it is happening, how the changes are happening, and what are the things which are happening in the present scenario, and also what are the things which are going to happen in libraries as a future course. So dear learners, automating a particular library has become a necessity for any of the libraries, whether it is a traditional library or whether it is a big library or a small library, public library system or any of the library system, automation is must. When we go for automation, we should be having a clear idea about what are the barriers which are going to make you a full stop for your adoption, and what are the challenges which need to be overcome when you perform library automation system. So for that, we require a complete planning, collaboration, experts, customization. All the services are required to perform a good library automation process. Apart from that, you need to go for an automation system, like whether it is in a commercial vendor or maybe you will be adopting an open source integrated library system where you are free to use such kind of an open source integrated library system. You no need to pay for the installation or customization if you are capable to do that. So in that way, dear learners, we should be much skilled about the technological changes which are happening. You should be able to update yourself, the technologies which are coming in the areas of library and information science, and how the libraries are adopting such technologies, as well as what are the mechanisms or what are the facilities or what are the options are there in front of you to make library automation in a better manner and efficient manner, coping with all the technology and also its sustainability in the future course. Thank you.